Hi everyone, I'm Matteo, and today I'm going to talk to you about pattern matching. Some of you already know what pattern matching is in Dart or in other languages. Can you raise your hands? Okay, few people. Let's start with a brief introduction from where it comes from. So pattern matching was born in functional programming. And for example, in Haskell, OCaml, Scala, and Elixir, you can find it. But new languages like Dart and, for example, Python or Rust have that feature. Also in Kotlin, you can find it, and it's a little bit more powerful than in Dart. So what actually is pattern matching? Let's take, for example, a variable x with the value 5. And for example, we want to make some controls on top of that variable. So if it's 1, we print 1. If it's 2, we print 2, and so on. We check if it's greater than 0, and okay. And then we put an else case to handle the case when all the previous one does fail, and we have a fallback branch. How can we use a switch to handle all that logic? We have a switch that controls the variable x, and then we have, for example, a case to check if it's greater than 0, we print greater than 0. We have a case when it's 1, a case when it's 2, and a default case. This is just a simple switch from that we all know, and it's nothing new, okay? But first of all, what's wrong with that switch? Can someone answer? Yeah, who said that? Okay. The order matters, because our variable is 5, so it's greater than 0, and it won't ever go in every other case. If we put a case with case 5, it won't go in there because the greater than 0 is first. So the order matters. You have to keep that in mind. Going on, the Dart free syntax, the actual new thing that we have now. So how can we migrate to that syntax? For example, this is the new version of the default case where you can capture the variable that we are switching on and use it in our case. That variable, the fallback value, has the same value as x. I didn't find an actual usage for that because I can simply use x and print it. So, but yeah, it is possible to use it. Or we can use a wildcard. It's an underscore, and it basically tells the switch that we don't care about the value of the captured variable, and we want just to create a fallback branch. And the interesting part is that now we can use switches as expressions to assign values to our variables depending on cases. So how do we change that? We remove the case keyword. Okay, the colons became arrows. Then the semicolons became commas, and we put a semicolon at the end of the switch. And then we assign everything to a variable. So removing the prints, that doesn't make sense, and putting some values there. Y is going to have the value 10 if x is 1. And 20 if x is 2, and so on, okay? So every branch is going to return that value, and it gets assigned to y. We can also use wildcard there. How can we deal with classes and switch on them with the new syntax? Take as an example this class, point. It has an x and y, and we have a simple constructor. We create a point, and then we can switch on it. But look at that syntax. We have a case with point, and then x and y inside of it. In my opinion, that syntax is kind of misleading because we can see that as a constructor. So we are constructing a point with x equals to 0 and y equals to 0, but that's not the case. What we are actually trying to say is that we want a point that has that particular in that particular case. So we are not actually creating a new point, but we want to check if P, our starting point, has x equals to 0 and y equals to 0. And we can also check if it's greater than 0, greater than a value, less than a value, and so on. And we can also use Boolean operators on that. So we, for that special case, we want to check exactly if y is 3 and x can be 3, 5, or 9. Okay. One other thing is that, for example, if we have a num, we all know that nums are can be both int or double, and we can also check for entire classes in our switch. So we can switch on the fact that it's an int and do something in particular. But if we just write that, we are going to get an error, and why we get that? Because it's not exhaustively matched, because the Dart compiler is going to say us, okay, you checked for an int, but in num can be something else. So you have to check all the cases, or put a wildcard to handle all the other values that variable can be. Also, in the previous switch, sorry, I have to go back. I might, okay, here. We can have the same issue if we don't put the wildcard there. So, because x can be other than 1, 2, or greater than 0, and so the compiler is going to complain. Going forward, okay. Okay. What about enums? I really like that usage of the switch for the enums, because you can switch on the actual values of an enum. So if we, for example, want to create a toString, we can switch on this because it's referring to the enum itself, and we can switch on the single values and return, for example, strings in that case. For the same thing that we told earlier, we can't just switch on two values because the enum has 4, and so we can put a wildcard or switch or return or check for all the values of our enum. A new keyword was added, the when keyword. How can we use it, and which are the cases when it's more useful? Take, for example, those two classes, a user that has then an address, and I just filled that class, and we can switch on a user and extract his name. The syntax is the class, then we type the name of the property that we want to extract, and then we say final and the name of that property. If we want to keep the name of the property that already defined, like in this case, name. We can also type only user, parentheses, what's the name? Comma, no? Colon, okay, colon, final, name. And we don't have to repeat name, final name. After that, as you can see, there's the when keyword, and it's going to let us check for a specific value of that variable. And although this case is not actually useful, because we can just write that, okay? It's just a way to show you how to use that keyword. And for example, we can also do this. So we have a user, we extract the address, and then we check if the number of the address is greater than 5. And also this case is not very useful, because you can also write it like that. But I think that the real case scenario where the when keyword is game-changing is when you try to use to check for external variables. So for example, if we add a variable, a random value inside our logic, we can do this. So we get the name of the user, and only when the random value is equal to 7, we do something. So it's going to check both for the user and for that value that is outside our switch, because we are switching only on the user. Okay? Is it everything clear? Okay, perfect. Lists and map. So we have a simple list, and we switch on the elements. We can now put lists inside cases. So in that specific scenario, we are checking if the list contains 1, 2, and 3, and only those values. So it is really, really specific. And if we can also use array deconstruct to create different cases to check on our lists. So for example, in a case like that, we are telling the switch that we want to check if the list starts with 1 and then has another value that we don't care which value it has. But the important part is that we are checking for a list that has only 2 elements, okay? And we can do the opposite, so it starts with something and ends with 2. But with array deconstruct, we can also check if a list starts with a value. And here, the length of the list is not something that we care about, because you are saying starts with 1 and then has values in its tail. And we can do also the opposite with checking if ends with a specific value. Now with maps. That's a really normal response from a backend. We have a name, we have an age, and a status. We can switch, for example, on specific data inside our map. So in that case, it's going to enter our branch only if everything is matching with the values inside the map. So if, for example, the name of the person in that map is going to be Luke, that case won't pass, because the status is the same, the age is the same, but not the name, okay? So it's going to check the whole map and pass then. And we can also do a mixed thing with static value that we put there. So for example, the status 400, and extract the data from that map to use it in our branch. So for example, I extracted the name and the age and printed them. We can also check for the status of our variable. So as you can see, I'm extracting the JVT, and I'm using the question mark. What do you think that character means?
Checking whether it's not null.
and it's kind of strange in my opinion, because we use the bang operator in our code to tell that variables are not null, but in that case it's the question mark that it's used to check and say, okay, go in my branch if JVT is not null. So what we are printing here now is the token, and it's going to be printed only if it's not null. So it's kind of strange, but it works like that. Maybe in the future they will change it, I don't know. Then we can check, for example, if it's null. Look at the difference between that null and this. Because if you are going to take our map and ask for the response and then in quotes JVT, we are going to get in both cases that one and this one null, okay? Because in the first place the value is actually null, and in the second case it's not contained inside the map, but we are also getting null as a value if we try to access the JVT. So those two cases are actually different, because in the first place we are checking if the JVT is actually present, but its value is null, and the second one is actually checking if it's not present in our map. The syntax is kind of weird, but what I'm actually trying to do there is I'm typing final map, which is just response but renamed, and then I say when the map does not contain JVT. And as last, just extracting the JVT, so it can be null, it can be it can have a value, and it's just an extraction of that variable from the map. To finish our talk, I will leave you with some tips and tricks. So, for example, we talked earlier about classes and how to deal with them and extract the values, but you don't always need to use a switch. You can also use an if and put the case keyword inside of it and extract values and check for specific values inside the class. I used it not so many times, but I find it very useful, because sometimes you just need to check for one specific case, and using an entire switch can be too much code, okay? And the if can be more cleaner, okay? More cleaner, okay. And one other nice thing is that we can also access getters, because getters are actually class parameters, okay? And but that can be dangerous sometimes, because, for example, in a list we can check for the length or if it's not empty, which is kind of cool. But for example, let's go back to our point, and let's say that we create a getter to get our coordinates. If the case is just that one, it's totally fine and nothing to care about. But look at this example, for example, okay? Doesn't make sense, I know, but if we are going to do something like that and then use a switch or an if and check for the coordinates, it's going to take ages before the check ends, okay? And our app or program is going to completely freeze, okay? So always care about what you're actually writing in your getters. Also, as you can see on the Dart website, long-time operations are not allowed, are not, how can I say it? Recommended, yeah. Are not recommended inside getters, so always avoid them. And yeah, that's all for today. And thank you for listening. And okay. Here are two QR codes. The first one is to leave a feedback. It's just 3 questions, so not that long. And the other one is to connect with me, and here are all my social links. And thanks. If you have questions, now it's the time.